Well, hi everybody, Father Alex here. Welcome to another episode of the Godcast. My guest on the Godcast this week is Baptist minister, comedian, and author Allan Finnegan. We're going to be talking about his book. I didn't ask for any of this: church, comedy, and cancer. Very moving story to be heard. So I do hope you enjoy or take what you can from this interview with Allan. If you do enjoy it, then please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, or perhaps follow me on Facebook or on X at AlexDJFrost. But for now, here is the brand new podcast with Allan Finnegan. Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast this week is Baptist minister, comedian, and author Allan Finnegan. Allan, it's a real privilege to get you on. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, not too bad. I'm good, and thanks for having me on.
Uh, my
Fabulous.
my privilege. I'd seen the book pop up, and I thought this is an interesting story. And then got a joint friendship with Jill Duff, who's
And
contributed to the book, hasn't she, on the cover? And so, Alan, we'll get down to the serious and the dark side of things.
yeah.
Just just tell us a bit about that journey of writing a book. I feel very privileged that I've written a book as well, so I kind of think I've got some empathy with that. But was that a struggle or a joy? Just tell us about that.
I've kind of wanted to write a book for ages, but I didn't really have the motivation or time. In a sense, I did, but it wasn't a priority. If you get what I mean. I had all these stories of training to be a minister and all sorts of different stuff over the years, and actually being a minister in a kind of, kind of, challenging place. So, there's always loads of stories, but I never got round to it. And then getting the diagnosis that I got, which I'm sure we'll get onto, is it's kind of gave me the time because I could do less and less physically. So I ended up being able to sit there, and I had the time, and I thought, oh, I'll do this now because I've got nothing else to do. I'm a bit bored, and so I started, but I didn't really know who I was writing it to or why I was writing it, and so Andy Kind, who we've talked about just before we started, put me in touch with a publisher, and they sort of said to me, you need to know why you're writing it because that'll give you the motivation to carry on, and who you're writing it to. And I couldn't answer them questions for a couple of weeks. It took me a while to sort of think that through. But once I knew that, I found it dead easy in lots of ways. I was just writing almost every spare bit when I wasn't sleeping. And sometimes I'd wake up in bed and start writing a bit again in the middle of the night. And so it was quite easy to write once I sorted out why I was writing it. And then I could get rid of some of the stories that didn't matter towards the actual narrative of it all and all that. So in some ways, I found it easy, but I found it hard at first, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
And what about the
yeah.
what about the title, Alan? Was that
Oh,
quite often? I know in my book that the title was up for discussion numerous times. Was that the same for you, or just tell us about?
yeah, it was the title was really difficult to come by. Every time we came up with the title, the publisher was like, "No, that doesn't work. It's not searchable. There's too many hits come up on Amazon when you search that title, and no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work." Yeah, it probably took. It was harder than writing the book, coming up with the title. So eventually, I said this to them, and she said no again, and then she like checked it on Amazon, and there wasn't that much you would find the book. So she actually signed off on it eventually. But it took must have been about 8, 9, 10 titles before that one. It was just ridiculous trying to find a title for it. Yeah.
We, we
And-
should we should perhaps tell people the title of the book because they're thinking, "What's it called? What's it called?"
oh yeah,
I'll let
yeah.
I'll let you tell us, Alan.
I didn't ask for any of this, and a subtitle which is Church, Comedy and Cancer. Yeah. Um, yeah, which is a summary of what the book's about then, yeah.
Yeah. So that gives the listener some clarity straight away that you're a minister, you're a comedian,
Yeah,
and you've been given this challenge of cancer to deal with.
yeah.
Just sticking with the book for a minute, Alan. It's only recently been published, hasn't it?
Yeah, it came out the end of January, yes. The last couple of days of January it came out. Yeah.
And been getting some five-star reviews already, I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've obviously never wrote a book before, and I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, if you get what I mean, because I'm a bit in the natural kind of a glass half empty person. So I probably thought it'd be rubbish, if you get what I mean. Which is a bit of a backstory to my life, and you'll pick that up in the book if you read it. That it's that's kind of my default mode, that I'm not very good at anything, and so the book wasn't going to be very good. So I'm quite humbled in some ways, and surprised that it is getting such good reviews and people messaging me almost daily on social media and stuff, saying how much they've enjoyed it and laughed out loud and cried, because it has got all the different emotions in, yeah. So
I was going to ask if it's too soon to pick up that kind of feedback, but with my experience, there's the joy of writing the book, Alan, but then there's the actual joy that some people actually bother to read it. And
yeah.
you're clearly picking that up already, and I think I think with the circumstances that you're dealing with, must be a real tearjerker for people to read and kind of get their head around. How important is your sense of humor right now, Alan?
Um, well, it's kind of who I am. It's a part of me. And one of the things when you do the likes of stand-up comedy, and I think anything, I think what you have to do is find you and your voice and who you are and be authentically that. And it took a while, but the comedy probably brought it out more. Um, so it's just who I am. It's probably a coping mechanism in some ways. Um, but yeah, finding the funny in things is what I kind of do, and it kind of deflects, I suppose, from the harsh reality of some stuff. But I actually, yeah, I've got a kind of jovial outlook on stuff sometimes, and I think it helps. And the book reflects that kind of all the way through, even in the end, which it starts to get sadder when I start to talk about cancer. Um, yeah, so the reviews of people, it's good the reviews of people who don't know me, because a lot of people who've bought it know me, if you get what I mean, and they can almost hear my voice reading it, so they've got a kind of advantage in some way. But also they know me, so they're invested in it. They can sort of think, you'd almost expect them to say nice things, even if they don't like it, kind of thing. But it's the people who don't know me that have been sending reviews in that have really blessed me.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
so
you said something a minute ago that definitely resonates with me, and I think other comics. I've got a average comedy background. That you said you're a glass half empty person, but then, you've got this kind of sense of humor that is part of me. I think that. Do you think that's intrinsic to comics, Alan? Do you think there's an element of, in the pathos or in they see the humor in the dark moments or, the difficult situation?
I think what I find with comics is a lot of us are introverts. And so we use it to deflect away from us, if you get what I mean. And it's going to sound really silly, but I'm actually painfully shy a lot of the time. Very introvert. If I go into a room with loads of people, I'll try and hide in the corner somewhere. I'm not like up front and central and being, the the center of the room kind of thing. I'm actually quite shy, and so, but on stage, it's okay because you're on your own in a weird sort of way. I know you're facing the opposite way and everyone's looking at you, but you can't really see much because of the lights in proper comedy clubs. Um, so it's kind of all right, but I think a lot of comedians I know are you do get your odd extrovert, but a lot of them are introverts,
Mm.
quite shy, and so comedy is a way of, I think, deflecting away from you, sending the subject somewhere else. Yeah.
What comedy were you drawn to, Alan, as a young guy? I mean, I'm from a generation of Cannon and Ball and End of the Pier kind of summer
Yeah,
season,
yeah.
Russ Abbott and all that, and became a real fan of Les Dawson was a particular hero of mine. What about yourself? What was your kind of route into comedy?
I mean, I seen all that on the telly at the time, but I guess my favorite comedian would be Billy Connolly, storyteller. He's probably the favourite. My route into comedy, I wasn't, again, the title of the book, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want to be a comedian. I had no intentions of going into stand-up comedy. I was training to be a Baptist minister. We were in preaching classes, and the tutor said, the day of preaching's finished. No one listens anymore. It's a cultural oddity. One person, one microphone. And I'd been to see Peter Kay in the Echo Arena, 11,000 people shouting for more after an hour and a half, with just a little break in the middle. And so I disagreed with him. And I was like, it's not the mode, one person, one microphone. It's what you're saying when you've got the microphone in your hand. That's the problem. And the way you're saying it.
Mm.
So I got sent as part of me training as a Baptist minister to do a stand-up comedy course. And I had to compare and contrast preaching and comedy as an essay, as a reflection on that course. So that was the only reason I'd done it. And at the end of that, you have to do a gig in a proper comedy club at the very end. And that was terrified of that. That was so out of my comfort zone. But then some fella on the course who was with me just started booking me and him into gigs. And I was like, I'm not doing this. And he was like, oh, just come. So I kind of just did. And it, it became a bit cathartic to me, because church, as you're well aware, can be great and wonderful and beautiful, but it can also be tragic and really heart wrenching at times when people say the stuff that happens and you get involved in as a minister. And so it became cathartic to me at times. And so I just sort of carried on and it sort of snowballed from there. So I wasn't, as I say, I didn't ask for it. It just sort of happened.
Mm. Was there
Yeah.
ever compromise with the comedy and the faith aspect, Alan? I mean, Bishop Jill Duff, who we both know, I've recently had my annual appraisal. I won't go into the the down and dirty gritty stuff, but she actually said I'd said to her that I felt like I'd lost my sense of humour a little bit, and she went, right, that's your objective this year is to find your funny bones again, and it was quite empowering that actually, but because sometimes, as you just alluded to, the ministry can get quite dark and quite difficult and challenging. It's almost like feel a bit guilty about entering the world of funny, but it's a real. I always say to people now, it's such a gift. You've had that gift from God to make you laugh. Would you concur with that, Alan?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because it can be a lonely place being a minister of a church, and I've experienced all that in the past. When it's really it feels like a really lonely place, even though you're surrounded by people all the time. But I think with the comedy, I think it helped me in lots of ways. Um, I've kind of forgotten the question as we're talking. It
But
was.
just about this the seriousness of it,
Oh yeah.
the
Was there
company ever
any?
crept in on the on
I've,
the actual mission of being a Christian.
yeah, I've remembered. It was more. It was about. Was there any conflict in that? And the kind of is a little bit, and it was a line that I like to try and walk very close to, but not go over. Because I wanted to be faithful to the gospel, if you get what I mean, but also faithful to comedy.
Mm.
So I wasn't going in there to preach. Um, I was going in there to be a presence, definitely. But I wasn't going in there to preach and be preachy because that's the first thing they thought about me. As soon as I was introduced as the Reverend Allan Finnegan, the crowd would go quiet because they think, what's he going to do? And so then I had to get them on my side. Um, so I wanted to be authentic to my faith, but also very authentic to comedy. I was there to make these people laugh, but
Mm.
also show something of the gospel in through what I did. And I mainly did that by self-deprecation, to be fair. I'm the worst minister you'll ever meet, kind of thing,
Yeah.
which wasn't far from the truth in my head. And so, but yeah, obviously no swearing in my act and
Mm.
things like that, which did get picked up upon. So, but trying to push the line a little bit, so, doing what would be considered edgy jokes in church, but not in a comedy club.
Yeah.
No way. In a comedy club, I was tame as it gets, you know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
clean as it gets. But in a church setting, you have to think slightly differently if you're doing a because inevitably you get booked to do church gigs, and they're just not the same. In a church gig, you have to get them to like you first for the first 15 minutes before you ever tell them any joke that is slightly risky. But in a comedy club, I've got to go straight in because of the, oh, what's he going to say to us? Is he going to preach to us kind of thing? So they are different. I've learned that by mistake. Going straight in a church gig and they just didn't laugh at anything else the whole night.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it
Yeah.
is there is a line and I try to navigate it as best I could. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. And then, of course, this BGT gig comes along.
Yeah.
Just tell us how that came about, Alan. I mean, we've got numerous similarities. I did BGT with a friend of mine. We got in front of the judges, but we never got anywhere near your level. Just tell us how that came about. Did you just put yourself forward? Did somebody kind of sound you out? Just tell us about that.
Yeah, the producers contacted me and said they want to put me straight through to judges. They contacted me in previous years earlier and it had gone nowhere. But this time they were like, we want to put you straight through to judges. And they contacted you in about the September, October time. And it wasn't until February, just before lockdown. And and then there's a process of them editing what you say and do. And you'll probably know this to make sure you're not going to offend anyone at all and all this sort of stuff. So it was a long process. I would have never have put myself forward for BGT. That's just not my character because I'd think I was rubbish and I was going to get buzzed off. And them buzzers, as you may well be aware, are very, very loud on in the theatre kind of thing. That on the telly they don't sound that loud, but in there
Yeah.
they are jumpy loud. And the person before me got four, and they were running late, so they just said, "We're going to get you straight on." I was like, "Oh, great." So yeah, I wouldn't have put myself forward ever. I don't, I wouldn't put myself forward for anything, to be honest. But especially that, because in my head, I could only fail.
Yeah.
And if I made a show of myself on national television, that would be the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it went well. The
Yeah. I mean,
semi-final,
yeah.
however, wasn't as good because it was to an empty room and just four judges and me in this room because of COVID. And so it was a terrible experience. They made it look good on the television when they put the canned laughter in and all that kind
Mm.
of stuff because it was just a silence type of thing. It was terrible. I hated every second of it to the point that when they rang me up and said you haven't got through because you don't go through on the night, I was like, oh, thanks. Thanks. I couldn't do that again. Yeah.
It's so fascinating listening to you, Alan, because I'm wondering if I was the person before you that got the four buzzers.
Oh no, it was. I
It,
remember who it was. Yeah, yeah,
but that feeling of deflation, you get so far, don't you? And you think, oh, this is going well, but then you get that dreaded call. But what an experience for you, though.
yeah. I mean, I've always got that experience of getting that standing ovation in the London Palladium. Not a lot of people can say that, and I wasn't expecting it honestly. And so to get that, I remember walking down the road afterwards. I'd gone down in a pair of Nike 110s, as we call them in Liverpool, Air Max 95s. But they wouldn't let me wear them on stage because of advertising. So they went and bought me a pair of shoes from Primark, right, for £9. So I was walking because the trains from London after it stopped to Liverpool after 8 o'clock. So I had to stay. So it cost me money to go on Britain's Got Talent. I had, and I stayed in a hotel called the Just Good Enough Hotel, which you can't complain, can you? If they say it's just good enough, you can't then complain. It wasn't bad actually,
Just good enough.
yeah, it was just good enough, and I was literally walking to it, which was about a mile and a half away or 2 miles away. And I was walking down the road in these Primani shoes, and I was thinking to myself, did that just happen? I had no one to talk to about it. It was a bizarre thing. I was thinking, that just happened, didn't it? I'm not dreaming this. I've just had a standing ovation, got four yeses.
Yeah.
Simon Cowell said I was the best audition of the series. But he just gave his golden buzzer out about three acts before me. Yeah. And they didn't show that bit on the telly, obviously. But so yeah, I've always got that. The semi-final was difficult. And if I had to do it again, I'd probably play along more. They wanted me to be a character, and I wanted to do authentic stand-up comedy.
Mm,
So
mm.
them putting me in a pulpit and all that, I said to them, this isn't going to work. And they were like, no, no, it'll be great. And I was like, nah, it's not. So it was really, I should have done the more TV, which is what they want. That's what they wanted, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
yeah.
it wasn't me. I don't wear a dog collar. They made me buy one. I had to buy a dog collar to go on Britain's Got Talent because they wanted me in a dog collar, for the caricature kind of thing. And
I love that. There's
uh,
the different denominations right there. You and your
yeah,
Nike,
yeah,
that you and your Nike trainers in the t-shirt, and I is me trussed up in my dog collar and me
yeah,
and me
yeah,
brogues. But I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Alan, I'm thinking to myself, what a joyous experience, and when you reflect on that, I'm guessing you think God was in all that, or
Yeah, at the time, I just think I'm bumbling my way through.
Hmm,
But writing the book has helped me see kind of like, what's it called? Hindsight. I've kind of seen the hand of God on stuff all through my life. It's kind of really helped writing the book. Because I just thought I was stumbling from this to that and not knowing what I'm doing, and I'm a fraud, and I'm gonna get caught. I'm gonna get rumbled at some point, and it's all gonna come to unraveling down and all this. Because, yeah, so yeah, I can see the hand of God in it. Yeah, and particularly afterwards when having to fundraise, because that kind of gave me a little bit of a profile. Not a massive one, but I was kind of sort of known after that. So
hmm.
when we're fundraising to pay for private treatment, it was a lot of people kind of knew of me, if you get what I mean. But we had the book launch a couple of weeks ago, and one of the comedians who was on it on that day he said, "There's only two Baptists who are famous. There's John, there's 2,000 years, and then there's Alan the Baptist." It was Tony Vino, who you know well, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Tony Vino, for people who aren't familiar with me, is a really another Christian comedian who I know reasonably well, and he was one of the first guests on the podcast, so people can go back and check that out. So you got the high of the BGT and the life as a Baptist minister, and then Alan, you get this massive bombshell.
yeah,
Um, are you happy to say a bit about that and about maybe how it's changed or reformed your Christian identity? Because you'll get this as a minister as much as I do. Quite often, people, when things are going well and the roses are blooming in the garden,
yeah,
it's a lot easier to follow Jesus, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
But when you get
absolutely.
the bombshell, then it becomes very difficult and challenging. Just can you just say a bit about how that's moved and changed for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got the initial diagnosis. It was eye cancer. I had, well, cancer in my eye. It's basically skin cancer, but in your eye. It's a freckle that goes funny. And I actually didn't think much of that at the time. I was like, it's only your eye, innit? Your eye's little, isn't it? And its humour's little. So it can't be that bad. What's the worst case? I was thinking to myself, they're going to take your eye out, which
Mm.
isn't great, like, but it's not that bad. How wrong was I? So, because there's just no cure for it. Um, it's not your typical skin cancer, and I had a particular gene that meant it would probably come back and metastasize to my liver, most probable, which it did 2 years later, and the odds then are drastic. You are 90% likely to die in a year, and that again, no cure. It's liver cancer. It's not liver cancer. They haven't got a cure. They only had some trial stuff, which I couldn't have because it wasn't on the NHS. I had to pay for it. I remember the consultant telling me you could start a GoFundMe, and I said, "Well, how much are we going to have to pay?" And he went, "Well, you could do it 4 treatments, and it's about 50 grand each." And I was like, "Are you messing? Are you messing? I'm not worth 200 grand." And he was like, well, you never know. And in fairness, when we started the GoFundMe, it went viral, to be fair. And we ended up getting 3 treatments. But it definitely, when you get, so the initial was a bit of a shock to faith. Um, because I think with everyone, even if you're not in faith, these type of things happens to someone else. It doesn't happen to you anyway, even if you're not a Christian or anything like that. Um, and then receiving the terminal diagnosis, which was you've got 12 months or less to live, um, was another shock to the system on a different level. Because I guess I came to faith in the 80s. And again, this story's all in the book, but I'll just summarize it a little bit. At where kind of an evangelical, semi-charismatic kind of experience of that, um, where you're special, called, God's got a plan for your life, which only you can do. You're the apple of his eye, and all these things are true. However, they do slightly ignore the other side of life, tragedy, loss,
Hmm.
when things don't seem to work out as planned,
Hmm.
um, breakups, all sorts of different stuff. And so for some time I'd been wrestling with these ideas. So the cancer thing didn't bring the wrestling on. I'd already been wrestling with stuff in life and in church and what happens in people's lives and all that. So it isn't all roses, is it, as you know? And so my faith was already being sort of stretched and shaken and all that because it kind of didn't fit neatly into my evangelical kind of little box that I'd created and my Christian bubble that I was in. Um, and but then receiving the terminal diagnosis kind of made me massively rethink my faith. And I think now in a really good way. Um, you could a lot of people will me comedian friends were like, God must hate you. You know what I mean? And but it made me rethink it through. It made me look at the Bible in different ways. It made me read some of particularly around the cross area, and feel the pain and the agony and all that Jesus went through. It,
Hmm.
it gave me different eyes for suffering, um, and um, and how to embrace that in faith. I almost had to reinterpret my faith from that certainty, you're special, blah, 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 to my reality. And actually, it's been a really good thing for me, I think. Um, I'm not, I think, I don't know where I am with it still, but it's definitely been a good thing. And I can, I was thinking about it theologically, shall we say, and I'm going to make a massive statement, but it's not like that. But it was the only thing I could think of. It was a bit like the exile in the Old Testament, where they know a particular way of relating to God, and it's all about the temple and all that. And then all of a sudden, the temple's destroyed. They've been dragged off to Babylon. Except the ones that they didn't care about, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and because they know God's real, and that was my biggest problem. I say problem on purpose there. I could not bring myself to say God wasn't real, no matter what, even though my faith had completely been deconstructed in some way. It hadn't dissolved. Um, but I could not. I literally sort of done that. I think, therefore I am. I got to the bottom bit and said, no, there's definitely a God. So how do I now interpretate my relationship with this God in my reality of where I am? And I can only relate it to exile when they got to Babylon and, the singing by the rivers of Babylon, where, and they had to do faith differently, find a way because they still believed in God, even though a tragedy and massive and much worse than my tragedy, massive tragedy had hit them. They still believed in God, and that was the issue. So they had to, and then they come back, and it's a different way of relating to God.
Hmm.
It's synagogue and whatever else. Sacrifices aren't things, and do you get what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah, it reminds me of Chris Difford from band Squeeze came on, and
Yeah,
he tells a story about his struggles with addiction, Alan, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I had to find out where my knees were, and it was only when I found out where my knees were, and he was alluding to that fact that he had to actually put it, almost deconstruct it, put it
yeah,
back together, and then grow again. And
yeah.
but what a I don't want to encroach on your family privacy, but that's you, Alan, on that journey and that thought process. What about those nearest and dearest around you?
Well, my wife would be pretty similar, I would
Yeah,
imagine. I think she takes it a bit worse than me. Sorry, I've got a bit of, um, but I think she takes it a bit worse than me in some ways. But she's pretty similar
yeah,
to me. My children don't really go to church. Still got probably faith, but don't really go. And they're all right around me, if you get what I mean. I think they
yeah,
want to be nice around me, but I'm sure they take it quite badly at times. Um, However, um, they try to hide it from me, I think, a lot, particularly my wife. We talk sometimes and she gets quite tearful and stuff. I mean, because in some ways it's okay for me because I'm going to be the one that goes, aren't I? And so um, she'll be the one left behind kind of thing. And so I think they struggle with it, and it's definitely affected their faith in a weird way. My eldest daughter was like, she wasn't really going to church and all that. And then I remember when it first happened, she was like, "That's it, I'm done. I'm done. Can't do this. Can't believe in a God that does this kind of thing." But I think as the journey has gone on in my life, because I'm now 2 years and a bit into the 12-month thing, but that was mainly because of the private treatment that we got. Nothing else has worked since. She has softened and is talking about going back to church. I think I can, because even in this, on reflection, you can see the hand of God. We shouldn't have been able to raise nearly £150,000. Do you get what I mean? We shouldn't have been able to do that. Um, and then the books come out of it. There's a few things, and you just think, God's still in this. And even now, I was recently told that there's nothing else they can do. That all medical things have stopped now, and I'm at palliative care stage. And I got told about a month ago I had 3 months to live or less. And so we're into that danger zone kind of thing. But it's been a really good. It's going to sound maybe strange to some people who maybe watch this. I don't know, but I'm actually totally in the hands of God now. um, One way or another. I've got lots of charismatic friends who are all praying for me to be healed, and I'm way up for that. It's not like I want to die, if you get what I mean. If I'm honest, I'm not expecting to be healed, um, but I'll just go on their faith, if you get what I mean. And I'm all right if I don't, and I do die. I'm actually quite at peace with it, which I find quite weird myself saying sometimes, because I feel like I should be a little bit more concerned about that, but I'm not. I'm all right. I'm really I'm really at peace, and maybe I'm experiencing that peace that passes all understanding or makes no sense, because it feels like I'm experiencing that possibly for the first time in my life. And so I'm all right, and I know I'm in the hands of God. And the last like month or so, I feel like God's rounding things off in my life, and telling me it's okay. It's almost preparing me to die by saying, "Look, this is all right. Look, this is okay." So I did my last ever comedy gig a couple of weeks ago. Very difficult to do because I can't stand very long, and my legs go to jelly, and I
yeah.
get out of breath. So I did a five for the fella who I did my first comedy gig for. So it felt like it rounded off my comedy career. Um, Only in a little daft pub in Southport, not a massive. And there's the church looks great when I go. It's thriving without me, and that is a blessing to my heart. It really, really is. I'll go and not know some of the people, well, half of the people in the room possibly. And the beauty is they don't know who I am. I'm just a name. Um, and that's good to see. The building is in a really good place because we've had some grants that have just come in,
Mm.
which we're rubbish at getting grants because we've got no professional people to write them, if you get what I mean. And so, but these grants come in, and so I feel like the building's set up for the next 20 years. It's not going to be a drain, except for just general decor and stuff and maintenance, little bits. But everything else is like, we got an energy grant, which is future-proof the church for solar power and stuff like that. It's just amazing what's happened. Um, and other bits and pieces, it just feels like things are falling into place. And so I feel God saying to me, it's okay. Look, we're rounding it off. This is finishing well. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Which again, I'm finding quite weird to think about and talk about. Um,
Alan, I find it very moving, and I actually think I want to say to you that you're still ministering. You are ministering to the gospel of Jesus Christ, um, and you remind me of my father died from dementia, and it was pretty grim. It was
yeah,
pretty grim. But in the last few weeks and hours of his life, they were the biggest gift I think my dad ever gave me in many ways because I learned about um, what you're talking about is so much love, not just for God, but for your family and your surroundings and your
yeah,
circumstances that you've kind of reconciled everything and you're kind of it's very powerful to say, I'm ready now to give it to God and what that looks like. We might not be able to paint the perfect picture, but to be able to give that, I think it's very, very powerful and inspiring to me as a priest.
yeah. I've said it
Really very
a few
moving.
times. I've said it a few times to people. The last 2 years of my life have probably been the best,
Mm,
even though I'm in the worst of
mm,
circumstances. The last two have been the best because I've almost been forced to live in the moment a bit more and in the day. You
mm,
can't when you're terminal because of treatment and everything else that comes up in hospital visits and all. You can't really plan, 6 months in advance. You can only plan maybe 6, 8 weeks. And it's less now because I've only probably got that left.
mm.
So now it's like the next few days kind of thing. Um, but it forces you to live in the moment. It forces you to be present. It forces you to appreciate everything. I remember walking down the road not long after I'd just been given the terminal thing, and it was raining, and I just looked up at the rain, let it fall on my face, and appreciated the rain, which is I wouldn't have done that any other time in my life. I'd have been like, "Oh, great, I'm stuck in the rain," and so it has literally the last 2 years have been, I would say, a gift in lots of ways. Um,
It's so profound what you've said there, Alan. We forget that, don't we?
yeah, I mean,
Forget
Jesus,
the gift of the water and the flowers and everything. It's so.
yeah, God tells us to live in the today, doesn't he, and not worry about tomorrow. But we often don't. We live by the calendar and the clock, I say, and I'm no different. And so to be forced into it, it is actually a gift. It's a gift to make you appreciate that and those around you. And while I was still healthy, I had quite a few holidays that I could go on. So I did. I can't now. I can't really travel anywhere or do anything. I'm a bit done in now. But it was it was great to do at the time. So it's been the best 2 years of my life. Yeah, ironically.
Well, I can't tell you, Alan, I'm really quite choked up. It's been a privilege to talk to you. And I know some of your mates, I know Tony Vino and I know
Yeah,
Andy Kind and your other comics. They'll keep your legacy alive. And that book, I think, will be a wonderful story
yeah.
for people to be inspired by. There it is.
There
Um,
it is.
I didn't ask for any of this.
Yeah,
Uh,
available on a Broad Place Publishing. They're my publishers, or Amazon, basically.
yeah.
You might get it in some Christian bookshop soon. I don't know, but
Alan,
yeah.
let's finish with a gag. Have you got a joke in you? Could you kind
Oh,
of dig out a little gem?
well, I don't tell jokes. That's my problem. Um, I can do. I've got two jokes. One might not, your listeners might not appreciate, so I won't. I will say that one. That's the one I start in a comedy gig, a proper comedy gig. But I've got another one which is a bit cheesy. I recently joined Slim and Well, um, because I was overweight, so I recently joined Slim and Well. I thought I was doing all right when I lost £4 in my first week, but then I realised Jesus shifted the stone in 3 days. So
Very good.
uh,
Lovely.
bit cheesy, but yeah.
All
So
right. So everybody watching this, you've got to go and get Alan's book, and like I said, I'm really grateful, and it's been a pleasure talking to
thanks
you.
for having me on. Yeah, it's really good. Enjoyed it.